Welcome to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to give you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Hey, listen up and don't skip over this. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I am giving away completely free copies of my latest best-selling book, The Only Skill That Matters. This book is going to teach you how to upgrade your memory, read faster, learn more, and conquer your dreams. And it contains all new content written for 2020. Now, again, I am giving away completely free copies of this book. All you need to do is pay shipping and handling. So to pick up your free copy as a listener of this podcast, visit freelearningbook.com. That's freelearningbook.com. Greetings, Super Friends, and welcome to another special episode of the Superhuman Academy podcast. My guest today is Wade Lightheart. He is a 3-time Canadian national All Natural Bodybuilding Champion who competed as a vegetarian. He's former Mr. Universe competitor, the host of the Awesome Health podcast, and one of the world's premier authorities on natural nutrition and training. He has worked in the field for 25 years, sold books in over 80 countries, served as an advisor to the American Anti-Cancer Institute, and is the co-founder and president of BiOptimizers, a digestive and health optimization company. This was a really fun episode. Wade and I connected on a lot of different subjects that we both feel passionately about. We talked about technology and how our dissonance with our evolutionary blueprint is causing so many of today's health problems. We also talked about loss in his life. We talked about the discipline and how he cultivated the discipline to compete at such a high level. And we talked about digestion, the lymphatic system. In fact, I learned a couple really powerful biohacks in this episode that I never understood how they worked or why they worked. And I will tell you, I'm going to be going out and making a purchase based on this episode of something that I think is going to provide massive health for my family and I. In addition to that, Wade was very generous at the end of the episode. He gives away not only a complete online course, but an awesome discount on some products if you would like to check out BiOptimizers products. I've been using them and loving them. So without any further ado, my new super friend, Wade Lightheart. Mr. Wade Lightheart, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I'm really excited about today's episode. You and I share a lot of topics in common that we're enthusiastic about, not least among them biohacking, weightlifting, consequences of technology. So I'm hoping we have time to get into all of it.
Yeah, man. Let's dive into it.
So Wade, I always like to ask guests to tell me their origin story. How does one build up the quite eclectic life story and resume that you have?
You know, it really comes down to, there was a key moment, I would say, when I was 15 years old. So I grew up like every other kid in Canada, a rural area, playing hockey, doing all the normal things. And when I was 15, a situation happened. 3 things happened almost simultaneously that changed the pathway of my life. And I didn't even understand the depth of that. So it's not necessarily what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens. So I'll give you a condensed version. Basically, my parents moved from the little village I was in to no village. It was 5 miles to my nearest neighbor. They were caretakers of a wealthy businessman's resort. So it was a beautiful place, but I didn't want to be there. I mean, the telephone poles ended up my door and the power lines. I had to take a snowmobile out to the bus on a lot of mornings, which was an hour bus ride to get to school. I mean, it was kind of crazy. And so I was stripped away from my normal friends, environment, social structure, my sports kind of career, all that sort of changed. I wasn't very happy about that. Second thing that happened is my sister was 4 years older than myself, was diagnosed with cancer, cancer of the lymph nodes, which is a form of Hodgkin's disease is what it's called. And I watched for the next 4 years as she went through the medical model, before she died the untimely age of 22.
Oh my
And what I learned from that experience was, number one, your life wasn't a guarantee and your health wasn't a guarantee. And conversely, I remember we'd take her home from, being ill, and we'd go for the quote unquote treatment, and we'd have to stop 6-7 times on the way home so she could get out and, vomit and stuff. And I was in my naive kind of way, it's like, I don't know. This doesn't seem like this is helping the situation. It just seems like we're getting sicker from the treatment. So that sparked a deep, emotionally driven curiosity about how the body works, health, and stuff like that. And the third thing that happened during this time, she gave me a bodybuilding magazine that had Troy Zaclato on the cover, who had just won Mr. California with 2 pretty girls in bikinis. And I thought, wow, maybe if I had these muscles like this guy, I would get like pretty girls like that too. So having a lot of time on my hands, I decided that I would build a gym in my barn. So it was just like I think it was Rocky IV where he fought Ivan Drago. I had sawhorses. I had a 2-wheel under a tractor tire. I had a pulley system that had a pipe hooked onto a kind of a T-bar thing that if I pulled the weights up too fast, it would smack me in the head. And very crude training. But I discovered Arnold Schwarzenegger at that time, and he wrote a book called Education of a Bodybuilder. And in that book, he said, you could achieve anything in life if you had hard work, self-discipline, and a positive attitude. Now, I had heard the hard work story because everybody I knew worked really hard in very tough conditions and didn't have much to show for it. The positive attitude and self-discipline was a new concept to me. And so I embraced his ideas because at the time he was the #1 movie star in the world. He was a multi-Mr. Universe contest winner, an Olympia winner, and he was living the life that everybody dreamed of. And so I was like, okay, great. Let's see if we can put this to the test. Long story short, I ended up studying exercise physiology at the University of New Brunswick. I worked in every single area of the supplement and exercise, fitness, thing from gyms to management to personal training, nutrition. And ultimately, after 16 years of training, I got to represent our country at the Mr. Universe contest in Mumbai, India in 2003. After which I had a huge physical crash because I had been suffering from a performance-based diet, if you will. I had the best coach in the world. I had Spartan discipline. I had all the things that Arnold said that you need to get there. But there were some missing elements. And after that contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. Met a doctor. That doctor, I went to him and said, what's going on? I don't understand. He was a senior citizen, super healthy, super vital. He was like everything you wanted to be when you were a senior citizen. And I was like, I don't get it. I've got all the things I'm supposed to do. I've got the discipline. I've got the training. I've got the coaching. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I've been at the pinnacle of aesthetic ideals and performance. And somehow I've become a health wreck. And he said to me, Wade, you've learned to build the body from the outside in. I'm going to teach you how to build the body from the inside out. Long story short, I tutored under him. In 6 months, I recaptured my physique, but I was able to experience a new level of health and vitality. And from that point, my business partner started a company. We started trying to help people avoid the mistakes that I had made following a performance-based diet with our triangle: aesthetics, performance, and health. Kind of the 3 angles that people are actually trying to achieve when they're biohacking or trying to improve themselves physically and all that stuff. And ultimately, that led to the company that I run today, Matt and I. That's BiOptimizers. We started that 15 years ago. So
incredible. Tell me more about the health crash and the performance-based diet. I mean, what was falling apart? What were you doing wrong? Because I love how you painted this picture for us that on the outside, I mean, Mr. Universe, you're supposed to be one of the healthiest people on the planet, right?
Yes. And well, this is the perception. And so we have a very visually driven society. If you go to magazine covers, Instagram, Facebook, all those things didn't exist. It was all magazines and television at that time. Now we have social media, which has amplified the situation. And so we see these pictures of people and certain levels of aesthetics because most of us are attracted into this industry usually from an aesthetics perspective. And that means they want to have a certain body fat, certain muscularity, certain look, whatever shape, size, all that stuff. And it's really driven by our desire to procreate. We want to be attractive to the other sex. You get better partners if you look better. That's the undercurrent that nobody wants to talk about. That's driving the cosmetic industry, the fitness industry, the clothing industry, you name it. So I achieve that goal. What we make the assumption is you can make decisions, and there's a lot of coaching that goes around this, which is simply towards achieving that look at whatever consequence. And usually when you're younger, you're not able to fully frame out the consequences of the decisions you make to look a certain way or to perform at a certain way. Maybe you're a long distance runner, maybe you're a professional athlete or going down that route. You're taking brain damage as a football player, or you're smashing your joints to pieces as an endurance runner. You don't know what maybe the consequences of your performance-based lifestyles is until you hit a crash. And for me, I hit that crash in 2003 at 31 years old at what was the aesthetic picture of health. So it looks good, but what we seldom recognize is that oftentimes underneath it, the behaviors and actions and quote unquote hacks that people are using to get into that state are compromising their ability to stay in that ideal long term, and actually may have a reversal. And that's what I discovered, and that's what reawakened me to the possibility of having aesthetics combined with performance, but overarching, not compromising my health, accentuating my health. And we've been on that mission of optimization ever since.
I love it. Give me some specifics in terms of, was it blood markers? Was it body weight? Was it fatigue, headaches? I'd love to understand, if you're comfortable sharing, of course. I'd love to
100%.
understand, what was breaking down, that was so out of sync with the aesthetic component.
Well, great question. So what happened is, back the truck up, I would have been almost on a continuous contest diet for the course of 2 years before that, including the 11 months leading up to it. So in order to qualify, I had to win the regional championships, the Western championships, then the Canadian championships, then move on to the Worlds. That's the pathway. And it just so happened that they were spread out over the course of an entire year. So I had to maintain a contest condition for an extended period of time. Usually you're in shape for a week or 2, 3 weeks, a month max. Staying in contest condition for 6 months had severe consequences. And during that time, my joints ached. I had extreme brain fatigue. I hardly was able to sleep. Even though I was tired, I would be waking up early. I wasn't in a relaxed state. I had kind of like a hair trigger of emotions, and really wasn't performing at my best in other areas of life. But that was just kind of, everybody said, well, this is what it's like if you want to win a contest. Mm-hmm. This is the price you pay. Just accept it. And I accepted that component. And what happened, I had switched from a couple years before. I actually attempted to do this without using drugs and without using any meat. So I was on a plant-based diet, but there was no plant-based proteins at this time or anything like that. And so my only recourse was to use, I was a lactose vegetarian at the time. So in other words, I could have milk products. So I had whey protein. So I was substituting all my meat products for just whey protein. So I was pounding whey protein every single day for basically 2 years. Oh my! And lots of it, like a couple 100 grams a day, 250 grams a day. And what happened is that disrupted my microbiome and my digestive system so badly that as soon as I let off the gas from my super restrictive diet, my body just went into massive inflammation and massive weight gain. There was also the components of maintaining a calorie restricted diet for such an extended period of time, combined with the essentially chronic overtraining to maintain that condition. So my body went into recovery mode, which was gain as much weight as possible, try and go into, a survival mechanism. And when I met the doctor, he said, your digestive system's off. You've depleted your enzymatic capacity. Your probiotic levels are in disbalance. Your mineral content is really low. You need to kind of clean all this stuff. Your alkaline balance is all washed out. I'm going to show you how to recover that. And that's what I did. And the bottom line was, in 6 months, my body not only captured my physique, but I felt a new level of energy and vitality that was more reflective of what this guy in his 70s was like. And I was like, okay, now we're on the right path. And from there, I think Matt and I coached about 15,000 people over the next 4 years. And we got a lot of clinical, experiential data from various people from all over the world of collecting data of how we could optimize that process.
I love that. So that's a great segue into my next question, which is, you've worked with a lot of people and obviously started a business that's serving everyday people, not necessarily bodybuilders or professional athletes. What is it that you're seeing when you work with everyday people? Because obviously, if I understood your story correctly, you saw a little bit of yourself in everyone, that we're all, as Kelly Starrett recently said on the show, we're all compromised in this day and age. And all of us are, for the most part, not at our peak health. So what are the things that you're concerned about, as a health professional, as someone who's been in the game for 25 years? What are the things that keep you up at night about the everyday person's health?
This is a beautiful question, and it's a lot to unpack. And for people to understand, and this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges for people, I would say, under the age of, say 35 and under, maybe 40, but 35 and under for sure. And the younger that you are, the more difficult it is to see through the screen, because the people who have grown up today in the world of radical and massive technological innovation. In other words, we're constantly on. Phones are on all the time. We're subjected to EMF waves. We're subjected to social media interactions. We're essentially all addicted to a dopamine response mechanism from our phones, our computers. We've disrupted our natural circadian rhythms, which have evolved over billions of years because we stare into blue lights we have on our computers and phones, which disrupt our circadian rhythms. Most of the food that people are eating has been so removed from its original form that it wouldn't even qualify. And we have scientific guidelines for food requirements and RDAs of vitamins and minerals, et cetera, and a definition of food that frankly does not support health. And we have a medical system that is not built on prevention. It's treating the symptoms of disease, not the cure, or not the cause, which is something that the New England Journal of Medicine reports. So people think that their doctor is there to keep them healthy. No, the doctor is there to intervene when your health has been compromised so much by your lifestyle. They're not lifestyle people. They are not nutritionists. They're not farmers. They're not, any of those things. And so we are reliant on a variety of systems that have been put in place over the last 80 to 90 years that have left our food completely devoid of the essential vitamins, minerals, and components. We eat food that's been packaged, processed. It's laden with a variety of chemicals. Even if you're eating, like, say, vegetables and plants and things like that, oftentimes they have herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. There might be dyes on it. There could be preservatives on it. It's probably been irradiated, so there's no enzymatic or probiotic. It's been sterilized, antibacterialized, and irradiated. So much of the nutritional value that would be in something that we say, quote unquote, healthy, isn't even there. To give you an example, if you were to have a peach today versus a peach in 1955, a peach in 1955, you'd have to eat 50 plus peaches today to get the same nutrient content of a peach in 1955. This this abyss of vitamins, minerals, enzymes, probiotics, amino acids, all this sort of stuff in our definition of food. People don't know this. People have no idea. They've never experienced growing a carrot in the ground. They have no idea what an organic garden is, or biodynamic garden, or heirloom seeds, and all these kind of things which have supported the health and vitality of humans and animals for billions of years. Well, all that's been changed. And so people are born into a world that they don't know it's always been that way. So how do you, as someone like myself, who had the opportunity to, work with my grandparents and my mother who had organic gardens before it was way cool and all that sort of stuff, and were explaining some of these things, which I thought were crazy at the time, and now I recognize were truth. How do you explain that to somebody here that's 20 years old that can get anything sent to them and over, they hit a button and Instacart shows up, or Amazon delivery, or whatever? How do you explain to them what food really is, how their body actually works, how their digestion works, or the key elements that have happened, not to mention the change in industrialization of farming and food practices? All of that to say, it's impossible for people to have a high level of radiant health that supports their biological organisms in today's world unless you are radically paying attention to these components. Now, the benefits are great. The challenge is the cost is going exponentially high. And that's an area that I'm really frustrated with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like, I mean, we all know the story of unhealthy food per calorie is so much more expensive than healthy food. We all know that potato chips are cheaper than broccoli, and that's not news. But the fact that it's cheaper to irradiate food, to grow food with garbage topsoil or garbage NPK fertilizer than it is to have cows grazing and organic fertilizers and, actually healthy topsoil. It's cheaper, much cheaper to have garbage vegetables. And especially in the US, every time I visit back in the US and I eat a tomato, it's like, this is not a tomato. It's cardboard. It's tomato shaped cardboard. It blows my mind. It's so much so that recently I have started composting because I want all those nutrients and minerals and I want to keep them in my family's diet. So we've just put a deposit on a place where we're going to have an actual urban garden and do our own composting because fortunately I live in Israel. And I think the produce situation is a lot better here than in many places in the world, but still I want to know what's going into my produce and what's staying out of my produce as well.
100%. And that's what's interesting is there is now technology available to people where you can control your own food supply chain. You can create vertical gardens that you can run on a balcony of a condo or in a small area. There's community gardens. And I think that it's well worth people investing the time and energy to learn about their food chain and what constitutes great food. And it's interesting that the funny thing is we're suffering the consequences of radical technological innovation. And the only way out of it is through radical technological innovation. Like We're so deep in, it's the only way out. So I'm a big advocate of technological intervention from a holistic health side in order to do this. And something like farming in a local community garden is a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm an investor in AgFunder, actually their alternative protein fund. But if you're interested in this, ladies and gentlemen, there's an awesome VC fund in California started by some very, very smart people. And all they invest in is alternative food technology. So how are we going to grow healthier food? How are we going to minimize waste in food? How are we going to get our protein needs without slaughtering billions of animals every year? And this is not a financial endorsement or in any way encouragement or financial advice, but I am an investor and I fundamentally believe in the work that they're doing because exactly as Wade has said, this is the only way out. The only way out is up, All right, let's take a quick pause and thank this episode's sponsor, BlueBlock's blue light blocking glasses, the only blue light blocking company in the world that create evidence-backed lenses for filtering blue and green light. Their Australian lab-built lens technology is fitted into the most fashionable frames, and they can even make prescription and reading glasses in their optics lab. So whether you want to wear their Sleep Plus glasses that block 100% of blue and green light, their Summer Glow mood booster glasses, or even blue light computer glasses that don't have a yellow tint, BlueBlocks has you covered. Now, I like to wear the Sleep Plus glasses 2 to 3 hours before bed, and they really, really help your sleep. I also like to wear the daytime ones for reducing digital eye strain, headaches, and lowering stress. Now, BlueBlocks has free and fast worldwide shipping, and if you use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout, you can get 15% off any pair that you want. Just go to blueblocks.com, that's BLUBLOX.com, and enter code SUPERHUMAN to save 15%. All right, let's get back to the episode. Wade, what do you eat today? I know you mentioned you'd been vegan in the past. What do you eat, and how do you ensure the quality of the ingredients that you eat?
Great stuff. So one of the best ways to go is go to your local farmer's market, where you can actually meet the farmer and find out how they grow the food, what they constitute the soil with. And it's a great resource because even sometimes they'll have farmers who don't qualify for the regular organic farming because some of the costs are exorbitantly high. And even like in the United States, for example, the USDA, you can buy organic food in the grocery store, but the USDA allows 50 different chemicals on that food. Right. Okay. It's not really organic. It's called organically grown, let alone how it was maybe chemicalized when transported.
Fertilized,
so you can actually,
chemicalized, yeah.
Yeah, you can actually meet the farmers. The other thing that I do is when I buy produce, I wash it in a 11.5 pH water through an electrolysis. It's an electrolysis machine. And what that does, it creates a water that has a very, very low osmotic pressure, which has the ability to emulsify oil. So when I soak my vegetables in that, I can remove any oil-based pesticides or any oil-based chemicals or any kind of toxic thing that might have an oil base that would stay on the plants if I was washing it with regular water. That's enlightening in itself. You see all the goop that comes off your food, even organic food. It's frightening. And so that's the first thing. So number one, I make sure that I get a really good source. Number two is I have a way of washing the chemicals off. The washes and water that will not wash these chemicals off, because oil, they use oil-based sprays because that way the rain or the irrigation doesn't wash it off. So that's the first step. Second step that I use is I derive all of my food, my protein contents and everything from a plant-based diet. So I do occasionally have eggs, or I occasionally have cheese, like maybe I'll go out with my friends and have a pizza or something like that. Or have an ice cream on a Sunday or something like that on a spike day. That's another, but for the most part, everything comes from plants for me. And then the third thing is I do fasting on a regular basis. And so it's not so much, one of the books I wrote was called Staying Alive in a Toxic World. And the bottom line is you cannot control everything that's going out in the environment. What you can control is your ability to manage the environment. So if you look at Darwinian philosophy, it wasn't survival of the fittest. That was the biggest misquote ever. It is survival of the most adaptable. So recognizing we have all these competing energies in the world, the toxins, the chemicals, the pollution, the demineralization, the lack of enzymes, the lack of... Okay, so that's the world that we live in. So as an intelligent human being, what I need to do is adapt to this environment. I need to control my food supply, and I also need to boost my ability to detoxify my system. Going back to my sister, the lymphatic system is 3.5 times the size of the blood system, and it is the detox component of our body. And it's very, very little is written about it or talked about it. I studied exercise physiology and nutrition. They just kind of gloss over this and they focus mostly on the blood system or the respiratory system or the kidney system or whatever stuff. But the lymphatic system is a huge deal. And of course, that's what my sister died from. She died from cancer of the lymphatic system. So imagine this, you can burn a lot of different types of fuel in your engine. And that's why we get a variance in diet. Some people are keto, some people are plant-based, some people are paleo, some people are vegan. In other words, there are all these different food sources that you can burn in your engine, which is the mitochondria. But if I was to go to your car and stick 2 bananas in the tailpipes, it doesn't matter what fuel you burn, it's not going to work. Your exhaust system is your ability to detoxify your system. That is your skin, that is your lymphatic system, and that is the elimination system from your digestive system, because it's a single canal from your mouth to your bum. And there's an elaborate digestive process that goes through 5 different stages. So your ability to to digest, absorb, utilize the food, and eliminate the waste, and to remove toxins out of the body through the lymphatic system combined with the skin system and your eliminatory organs, that allows you to have a level of health. So rather than trying to stuff yourself with a bunch of things, one has to be able to eliminate the toxins that we are all absorbing by being in this world. The best way to do that is through some of the practices I advocate, routinely fasting, at least once a week and maybe 3 days out of a month, or you can do alternate day fasting or intermittent fasting, consumption of a lot of water and antioxidants, deep breathing. So air, water, and exercise. Those 3 things are non-negotiable. I like a rebounder. I rebound every day. It's a mini trampoline, which is very good for the lymphatic system, for detoxing the lymphatic system, low impact. Those 3 things are a detoxification. So rather than looking about stuffing yourself in, it's about removing these chemicals first. Space hates a vacuum. When you create a vacuum, the universe wants to fill it. That's why the universe is expanding, and it's the same thing within yourself. If you want health, first you have to remove toxins to create a vacuum where health can come in.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, and I love every aspect of it, and I so agree with every aspect of it. Tell me about the rebounder, because I've seen a lot of people do this. I know Tony Robbins is a huge advocate of this, and I've never had anyone on the show who's actually talked about it. So what's the deal with it? How does it actually work?
Okay, great. So the best rebounder I'm aware of to this day is produced by a guy by the name of David Hall. He runs a company called the Cellar Sizer. I got no endorsement for this. I just let you know which ones I like. There's some other ones that are great. What I like is his machine's portable. Basically, it's about 2.5, 3 foot wide mini trampoline. And that trampoline allows you to jump up and down on it. Now, what's interesting about when you jump up and down on a trampoline, unlike going onto the ground where all the impact is taken up by the joints, the body, the skeletal tissue, on a rebounder, the springs in the rebounder will actually take the impact. So you have 3 forces working instead of just one. You have acceleration, deceleration, and gravity without impact. So this allows persons that are either really overweight or people who are really fit to be able to train at a level without creating impact in the body. Now, when you go up, for example, if you come off, say, a foot off the rebounder on a jump, which is pretty easy on a decent jump, and when you come back down, you're taking about 2 times the G's in your body, 2 G forces is hitting that rebounder every single time. Now, what happens, because of the law of gravity, there is a push inside the cells. In other words, your cells are all going to contract due to osmotic pressure. So every cell in your body, your liver cells, your kidney cells, your gallbladder, I would say, how do you do a push-up for your pancreas? You rebound. Every cell has to contract and expand as you go up to the 0 point. They expand and you're out of gravity, right down to the impact point where you're maybe 2.5 times your body weight is hitting that component, putting every cell under impact. Just like if you hit the gas accelerator really fast in a sports car, you get thrown back into the seat and then you pound the brakes and you go forward. Well, the same thing is happening to every cell inside your body. This creates a contraction component and an expansion that expels the toxins out of your cells and puts it through the lymphatic system. Now, the lymphatic system only works when you move. This is why sitting at your desk is the most unhealthy thing that you can do, because your lymphatic system is stagnant. In other words, you're not allowing the exhaust to come out of your car engine. And we're designed to move. Humans are extremely mobile creatures. At the turn of the century, the World Health Organization recommended 20 miles of walking a day to be fit. And the average person in the 1950s walked at least 10 miles a day naturally. Wow. Think about that for a second. All of a sudden, most people don't even walk a half mile, let alone a mile every day. You're sitting at your desk, staring at your computer, and all this goop that's from our environment is coagulating in your system, clouding your mind, making you lethargic, making you feel bad, and what you need to do is move. Now, walking is a great way, but it's not always an option for people. So a mini trampoline fits in your house. You can use it. You can bounce up and down. You can train on it. You can use bands on it. You can go for high intensity sprinting components on it. You can work every part of your body. It's simple. It's easy. It's fun. You cannot be unhappy when you're on it. And I use it every day for those reasons. It's extraordinary for detoxing the body, and it's a great way to get in shape.
That blows my mind. If someone who didn't really know their shit had told me this, like that it actually is going to cause detoxification in my cells, I'd be like, that sounds like some woo-woo bullcrap. But I've seen a lot of really knowledgeable and well-respected health professionals do this, and I knew there had to be something to it. The best example that I can think of is, I talk a lot about learning because that's my main business and how I fund this whole fun adventure on the podcast. And I talk to people about, okay, great. I can teach you how to read faster. I can teach you how to remember 10 times more information. But if you don't sleep, then all that metabolic waste is not going to be cleared. And it's the same exact, that is how the body heals, right? And the same is true of the lymphatic system. You got to be in motion. There has to be significant blood flow happening. So, I'm going to make sure that I get my future kids a mini trampoline so that dad can also jump on it.
What's really interesting with kids, if you put a trampoline in a house, like a mini trampoline, kids of all ages instantly go and jump on it. Now, there's some wisdom inside of children. If you feed sugar or, like red dyes and blue dyes and all these things, like that's just in a lot of kids' candies, they get wound up and kind of crazy. Well, they're actually having a chemical toxic reaction to that food that's disrupting their normal brain cycles and brain activity and nervous system activity. And what do? They start running around and jumping up and down on the couch or the bed. Well, the reason they're doing it is they're actually going through a detoxification pathway. And we tell them, don't jump on the bed, don't jump on the couch. And that's where a mini rebounder is great, because you go over there and the kids will instantly run over there and start jumping on it. And they love it because innately they're wise enough to understand that there's something really good in this.
Wow. That's really, really interesting to think about it. And reminds me, you talk about, there's wisdom in children, that we have more instinct than we realize. I studied sociology. And so one of the big realizations for me coming out of, and this is a really far out segue, but coming out of, the high school education of never touch drugs and all drugs are bad, and realizing that in most ancient cultures, we have an interest in altered mind states, but also that every child instinctively wants to spin around and get dizzy and see the world from different perspectives and get the sugar rush to experience the altered state of consciousness. And as you said, there is a wisdom in children that I think we lose often as adults.
Yeah, I think it was Terence McKenna that has the whole thought of the stoned ape, of how humans came into being, which is a very interesting concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wait, I do want to ask you, and this is taking us back a little bit in the flow of the interview, but I think it's worth asking. You mentioned how Arnold Schwarzenegger really impacted you because you knew about the hard work, but you also needed to know about the discipline. And then if you fast forward in your story, you've written many books, you've built a very successful business, you've won competitions all around the world for bodybuilding, often at the expense of your own health and comfort. Where does someone develop that discipline? And do you believe it's something that we can develop, or is it something that you always had?
Well, if you actually look at my profile psychologically, I'm not a disciplined person. It doesn't come naturally to me. But I'll share with you this, and people will, and I'll tell people, here's where you get discipline, is that you have a very clear and compelling vision for your future. Mm-hmm. Because what happens, and I learned this from a top bodybuilder by the name of Rich Gasperi when it comes to diet. Now, contest dieting, there's one thing of getting in shape, and there's a whole other deal of getting into contest shape for stage. You're getting to such a and I'm going to lead where this is going in a second. So you're getting to such a super physiological level of body fat. It's not a healthy pursuit. It's a performance-based pursuit to hit that. You can't sustain that level of body fat for any length of time. So you're fighting billions of years of evolution in order to get there, because eating more food is what your body is designed to do, because that gives you a better chance of survival. So in order to get there, you're going to be tempted with food cravings, long-term hunger, all these sort of things, fatigue. You're going to go through a lot of these things that cause people to eat, but they don't think about it. So how do you override those systems? You're very clear about the outcome goal, is like, I'm going to be on stage at this date and I need to be at this level and that sort of thing. Therefore, when I'm looking at, do I eat this food or not? Is this food leading me towards this goal? And you can apply this in any area of your life. So if you decide, is this decision leading towards financial sovereignty or not? Is this decision leading to increasing my intelligence or not? Is this decision leading me to a better relationship or not? So when you get clear about where you want to go in any area of your life, then you quickly, before you take any action on some plane of activity or possibility matrix, you go, is this leading me in the direction that you want? That simple question. And if you don't ask that question, you will default to the path of least resistance. And so without that kind of daily accountability inside your action network, you're going to start to skew, and then you're just really drifting around the ocean on a raft, not sure what's happening. And I think a lot of people are there because we have all these devices that are interrupting us towards our vision. We've got this fear of missing out, or we need to know the latest thing or whatever. I grew up in a time where I think was benefited that I didn't have those distractions. And so that gave me a leg up. I noticed today it's much more difficult to do that, which requires an even greater level of self-discipline than before, and an absolute clarity of where you want to go. Otherwise, you're not going to get there at all.
Absolutely. I feel like today it's so much easier for us because, and you mentioned this, like we are conditioned for immediate gratification, immediate hit of dopamine whenever we want. That I often think about the Marshmallow Experiment and what would happen with kids today. What would happen with adults today, much less kids? You know, how many kids would not eat that marshmallow? I think it's so easy for us to say, well, just once won't matter. And we do this bargaining and negotiation with ourselves. And one of the things I learned from psychologist Ben Hardy was that 100% is so much easier than 98%. Like I still have difficulty with eating foods that I perceive to be unhealthy, whether that's carbohydrates or occasional sugar. But for me, and that's because that needs to be a 98% for me, because, you know, I live in a society where sometimes that's what people are going to serve at dinner. But for me, alcohol is 100%. I do not drink, period. And that's a health decision that I've made.
Me too.
Or not one that I've had to make, but it's 100% decision, and it's so much easier because it's 100% decision.
Yeah. Abstinence. I think there was a monk that said, I think abstinence is easier than moderation.
Totally. Now, Wade, I do want to transition and talk a little bit about BiOptimizers. You guys were kind enough to send me some really awesome samples that I've been enjoying very much, but tell me about the vision for BiOptimizers. Why set out to start this company based on all of your experience, and what are the products that you're most excited about? And then I'll tell you the ones that I've really been enjoying.
Sure. So Matt and I, my co-founder, we were both personal trainers in Vancouver way back in the day. And after I went to the Mr. Universe and won a bunch of titles, he said, this is unusual. Let's build an online business. And we started there. And then eventually that evolved into biological optimization. We were bodybuilders are kind of the original biohackers, right? We were always doing experiments and stuff decades and decades before biohacking became a term. Mm-hmm. And I think Tim Ferriss made that observation. And you can go back to the history. So we were always tinkering with the body to make it do what we want it to do that was not in the normal parameters. And as personal trainers, we got addicted to helping other people transform their life physically, psychologically, emotionally, because oftentimes they're correlated. And when we started the company, we said, let's make a company that is very education dominant. We have a lot of education program that allows people to understand why we do the things that we do and take them through a process that allows them to achieve an optimal state of health, what we call biological optimization. And then let's only build products that support that vision. And the caveat was, we're either going to make a product that's either first in class, in other words, no one's ever created a product like this before, or it's best in class because that class is underserved with the technology. So we put the mission ahead of the margin. We never even paid ourselves for 10 years. A lot of people don't know that because we're just so into the process. And we just started building this company of our own interest. And really there was a gap. I mean, I worked in every single area of the nutritional supplement industry. He worked in every different area of the online digital world. He was doing Google ads and stuff like in the early 2000s and things like that. So our combined interests work together to build a really great conceptual idea of company. And from that, I knew the fallacies of what was going on, what was underserved, and we started to do that. And so we focused first on digestion. Right now, 12% of the emergency hospital visits are related to gastrointestinal issues. A third of the population is suffering from some sort of digestive issue on any given day, and 25% of those are on prescription or over-the-counter medications. It's a huge underserved market because there's an assumption in nutrition that we all think that if we, the old saying, you are what you eat. No, you are what you digest, absorb, and utilize. And if your digestive system is compromised, well, then guess what? That food now becomes a potential toxin. And this was known by, way back to the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, who medicine has become Hippocratic in a lot of ways. Like, it's the hypocrisy in medicine is very interesting because it's going away from the foundational components that its founders developed. And that was let food be your medicine and medicine be food. And all disease starts in the gut. Those were statements made by Hippocrates. And so with all the technological innovation around food, we've screwed up our digestive system. So we started there, producing enzymes, which are involved from everything from thinking to blinking and a key aspect that are missing from our food supply chain for digesting food, balancing the microbiome within a range of probiotic products, and increasing hydrochloric acid, which is a big issue, especially as people age. They don't make enough hydrochloric acid, which is related to immune function and as well as digestion. And then we just kept branching out from there. And then ultimately now we're into the nervous system and brain optimization with probiotics and herbs that improve cognitive performance, mineral products like magnesium, because it's the most deficient mineral in the population, especially in a blue light technologically innovative world, all these type of things.
Very, very cool. I've really been enjoying the Gluten Guard product because, you would be amazed how many situations you find yourself in where gluten is often unavoidable. And I also am a big fan of fasting, but I'll be honest, sometimes it's nice to have a piece of toast with breakfast on a Saturday.
No doubt.
And
Absolutely.
I like to be able to do that without worrying about what it's doing to my gut and microbiome for sure. Which product are you most excited about, Wade?
Well, I've been a big proponent of Masszymes, which is our kind of 17 different enzymes. It'll basically break down any type of food. That was a really great product. We've actually it's the third generation of that product. We've been selling that for 15 years. We're known as the king of enzymes as a company. We have the best enzymes in the world. I'm not just saying that. I understand. That's pretty much everybody understands that now. Cool. And our magnesium product. So I burned out a few years ago as a serial entrepreneur in using stimulants and nootropics and all these kind of things to continue to perform at a very high level, working 12, sometimes 15 hours a day, no breaks for a couple of years, living all over the world, running 3 different companies. And it became a little bit too much and I burned out. And when I did my testing with a naturopathic doctor, what he discovered when I did a SpectraCell test is that I was highly deficient in magnesium. I had been burning the candles. And so I got all these different types of magnesiums. I'd read Charles Poliquin's information and attended a seminar where we were getting into all the different things that magnesium is used. And he used all these different types of magnesium because he said that there were different types of magnesium uptaken by different parts of the body, muscles, nervous system, brain, and I was like, wow. So I started buying all these different types of magnesium and doing experiments with it like a biohacker would. And Matt was doing the same thing, and we ended up and it was working. And but then I had a whole cupboard full of all these different types of magnesiums. I think at one point I had like 15 different types of magnesiums. It was crazy. Wow. So overall, this experimentation, we decided that we would make a magnesium that had what we felt were the 7 best magnesiums that we could get. And the problem with that is they're different sizes and bonds, and it doesn't fit in a capsule very well. And so we had to get specialized machines and specialized expedients because we wouldn't use chemicals to keep the flow rates, and that wouldn't be able to produce. So we had to overcome all these challenges. And when we did, we created this product called Magnesium Breakthrough. And we said, well, let's see what people will like it because we'll see what happens. We were not prepared for the results that people started to experience when they took this. People were noticing they were sleeping better, they were calm. And I was like, holy cow, we knew people were deficient in magnesium. We didn't know what would happen if they started supplementing with kind of what we call super physiological or orthomolecular dosages of magnesium. And the testimonials start posting in. We sold out of that product, I think 5 times in the last 6 months. It's that crazy. And we keep producing, like we go, this will handle it. And then we run out again. So I don't know where the ceiling is, but I've never seen anything catch fire like this. And it's been really great to see all these people having better qualities of life because of this whole program.
That's really, really cool. And I'm excited to try that one out for sure. Wade, I know we've pretty much come up on time here. So first off, where can we send people to learn more about you and maybe pick up some BiOptimizer products?
Yeah, so really simple. I've got a special little thing for you guys today. If you go to bioptimizers.com, superhuman and put in superhuman 10, you'll get a 10% discount on any product. But when you go there, to our site at bioptimizers.com, that's bioptimizers.com/superhuman. There is a 12-week course that I give away for free. And it's basically, I break down all the principles of health and nutrition. I have what I call the awesome philosophy, which is an acronym for air, water, exercise, sunlight, optimizers, mental beliefs and attitude, education, and testing and coaching. And I've combined that all into a 15-minute day routine. You can mix and match or go through the course sequentially. But the bottom line is I took my 30 plus years of learning from all the greats and condensed it into a simple format. So I give that away to people because whether they get my products or not, that's their choice. If they get those practices in place, that is going to be the foundation for whatever they do. And maybe they'll try our products, maybe they won't, doesn't matter. I've done my part and helped them move the needle a little bit further.
That is awesome. And I will make sure my team puts all of those links, including the much appreciated coupon code as well, in the podcast show notes at superhumanacademy.com/podcast. Wade, I do want to thank you, but before I let you go, I have one last question that I always ask everyone on the show. If people take away one big message from this episode and they carry that message with them, no pressure, for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that message to be?
Take at least one day a week where you detox from technology.
Yes.
Don't take your phone with you. Don't have a computer with you. Get out in nature and experience the world without technology. And you will soon discover there is a level of beauty, a level of radiance, a level of calmness, a level of sweetness, and a level of experience that cannot be replicated in the digital world.
That is a phenomenal note to end on. Mr. Wade Lightheart, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a pleasure. I definitely learned a lot, and I know our audience did as well.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you. I'll have it anytime, Jonathan.
Thanks for tuning in to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit superhuman.blog. While you're at it, please take a moment to share this episode with a friend and leave us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next week.